This is a Fox News alert. The Associated Press reporting now that Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl is pleading guilty to charges of desertion and misbehavior before the enemy, 3 years after President Obama announced his release from the Taliban in a Rose Garden ceremony. Let's take a quick look at the timeline of events here. Bergdahl's platoon arrived in Afghanistan in March 2009. 3 months later, he was captured by militants after leaving his base. In May of 2014, he was freed in a controversial exchange for 5 Taliban terrorists held at the facility in Guantanamo Bay. Less than a year later, prosecutors charged Bergdahl with desertion and misbehavior before the enemy. In an earlier interview, Bergdahl described his ordeal.
It's a cage that was welded together. It's about 7 foot long by about 6 foot wide.
And how long were you in that cage for?
Second, third, fourth, and into the 5th year.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer is a senior fellow with the London Center for Policy Research. Colonel, what does this day mean to you?
Well, it means vindication, not only for me, but for those men and women who first off served with him and saw him walk away, and those who put their lives on the line, in some cases losing their lives. At least 6 Americans, 3 British members of the coalition died looking for him. And most importantly, those individuals who are now maimed from that search, who will probably be testifying today in the hearing, talking about the damage done to their lives by the Bergdahl situation. So, and this has been no small issue. As you know, Fox has been covering this. Fox went on a limb a couple years ago when I first forecast he would be charged, and you know, rightfully so. So I feel, you know, everybody is finally getting some level of justice. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens now in the sentencing. That's going to be the next big issue now.
So it's not clear if he has a deal with prosecutors to limit his punishment. No, that is not clear. There's still a lot not known, or if he's simply pleading guilty in hopes of leniency from the judge in this case, who is Army Colonel Jeffrey R. Nance.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's the issue now. We don't know. I know that there's so many Army. I've talked to my senior level friends, and there's a split on this. Some generals think, as he, you know, Bergdahl says, look, I served a lot of time locked up. Okay, well, that was his choice. You walked away. And then also the other factor of this that has to be looked at is, frankly, the trade of the 5 Taliban 4-star generals. That's something that cannot be ignored.
You look at the harm, the potential harm, the actual harm that was caused, the potential harm that was caused, and you look at what he is going to have to pay back for this. The misdemeanor charge here carries a maximum penalty of life in prison, Colonel, while the desertion charge is punishable for up to 5 years. This is a big day, as I can imagine, for so many.
Well, that's absolutely correct. And so this is where I think everybody has to take a deep breath, examine what happened. And let me say this, and I don't want to be controversial, but I think President Trump ought to rethink the deal that was made with the Taliban on his release. I mean, look, we all received back damaged goods. It makes the deal for Bergdahl look even worse now with the pleading guilty. Those 5 Taliban are still in Qatar as far as we know. They need to be returned to Gitmo for purposes of the fact that it was a bad deal. The Taliban has never stopped fighting us. Like President Trump called in question the Iran deal. This is another deal we should question. But most importantly, again, for this day, I think we all are owed some answers from the Army and about how they're going to proceed with Bergdahl and his punishment.
Laura Ingraham has a new show coming up on Fox News Channel. She weighed in on all of this on Fox and Friends this morning. Listen to this.
Well, isn't that a shock coming from a deserter who put his fellow soldiers in jeopardy and focused on his own convenience and his own feelings, not his duty to honor and defend the United States, his duty to the U.S. military, to our Constitution. Bo Bergdahl is playing the blame game.
No shock there, Colonel.
Yeah. He's playing the... Look, I saw the full interview. You ran a clip of it, part of it. He still will not clarify why he walked away, why he put men and women in danger looking for him. And most importantly here, he broke his own oath. This is is not a small issue. You cannot have people simply walking away from their posts in combat. So, you know, I have yet to understand any of the defense's postulations of why he did it. And it was all selfish. It was all about him. This is a very narcissistic move by Bergdahl, and I think he needs to be called into account.
And, Colonel, you actually believe he should have never been in the Army in the first place.
Look, the Coast Guard turned down his enlistment before he joined the Army. The Army was going through a desperate time back in the late 2000s. I mean, first 10 years of 2000, and they had a hard time bringing people in. He was given waivers to get in. And so the Army does hold some responsibility for allowing someone who fundamentally was not qualified to wear the uniform. But with that said, he did things that no soldier should ever be allowed to do. And as President Trump has pointed out, in other circumstances, in previous wars, his actions would have probably constituted the death penalty, and that's no small issue.
Yeah, the 7 American, 3 British soldiers killed, and those injured looking for him are owed accountability.
Yes, ma'am.
Say you. Colonel, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.